Welcome to Single Mom Survive and Thrive. Just me plus three, and we're living our best life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my latest episode. I am calling this the D Word Part 2, the second part to my D Word series. No, I don't have a series, obviously. D Word Part 1, we talked about dating, mostly in single mom life, and dicks, right? This one is a little different. It's not about that, but you know what? This topic is a little more serious. Today's episode is going to be a little more serious, a little more get your tissues ready type of thing. But I wanted to discuss this topic because it's something that's so prevalent in all of us, honestly, on a regular basis, every single one of us. But I think as a single parent, having to go and deal with what depression is a unique journey in itself. And we could talk about depression over and over and over and over and over again in many episodes, right? But I feel like I wanted to bring that up today, and I wanted to talk about it because it's like often a taboo topic. I feel like today it's not so taboo though, right? Like everybody is acceptant of the fact that we're all allowed to say that we deal with depression, and everybody deals with depression openly more now, but it is still slightly taboo. A lot of people don't want to think that they deal with it in multiple different ways in their life. But honestly, like what's going through my mind at the moment is like depression is like an easy segue from dating and dicks. I don't know about you guys, but that dating life can cause me depression in and of itself, you know. There's a million things that cause depression, but, situational things and dramas of dating and dealing with men, honestly, or relationships. Sorry, I don't mean to say that negatively about men, but just like, you know, the love relationships, that stuff is, it will drive us to our grave early, right? Sometimes. And then, there's so many other things that come along in our lives with our children that we'll dive into today and talk about. But I just wanted to discuss this topic a little bit and share with you guys a little bit of my journey as to how I've dealt with some depression over the years. And, we'll dive into that in some details. And I'd like to discuss it more with some friends as well in a later episode, maybe not today because I don't have anybody lined up to meet and talk with, but you never know. I could make a quick phone call on the fly and we'll see what happens. But depression, man, is that not a word that sometimes is thrown around a lot, right? It's something that a lot of us, we used to joke about that when I was young. We'd say, oh, it's so depressing. Oh, I'm so depressed thinking about that. It's loosely thrown around sometimes. And then, fast forward to our current day. There's been so much horrific things that's gone on in our culture today, through suicides and so on. And other things, homicides, all that. It all boils down to mental health and depression, right? I mean, depression is just one piece of mental health. Obviously, mental health, behavioral health, it covers all kinds of things. And by all means, by the way, I'm no expert in this. I'm not a psychologist in any way. I've just walked through my own journey. I can definitely share what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, things that I feel like has brought on some depression in me, and how over the years it's balanced out. But a whole new meaning of dealing with depression hit me last year when I was dealing with it with my children and my daughters, which we will talk about in a little bit from now. But I want to talk about some of that. And as a parent, I never had, like managing my own journey of depression is hard enough. But then having to be a parent and facing your own child's depression journey is next level. Some single parents out there right now, mommies might be like, well, my kids are 3 and 2 and what, like when you got little ones, I mean, some people have kids that have anxiety and depression when they're young. It's a possibility, especially when you've had separations and divorce. You've got a lot of kids that express anxiety and sadness and depression in many different ways. They're not exempt from it, but it doesn't present itself like it does in a teenager, right? When suicidal thoughts come around, or cutting and all of that horrific stuff that you're just not ready to deal with, right? So I want to bring some of that into the topic, and just, if anything, just if any moms out there are going through some of this with their kids or yourself, that you just don't feel alone today, that you know that we're all here with you, me and any other single mom out there, walking through the same shit, to be honest. it's not, life's not easy. You know, my mother-in-law always says, um, everything is difficult, nothing is easy. But it's like, it's so true, you know. Once we have the right expectations of life and we don't walk around thinking that things should be easy, we won't feel so victimized and alone, you know. Life's difficult and we have to manage it, and we never know what's around the corner that could spur up some deep inner sadness. And speaking of that, I just want to start off by saying I can't get away from my usual ritual. It is Sunday. It is cloudy outside. Very depressing, you know, mood. But I'm drinking a beer. So I want to cheers to all you ladies and men if you're listening. I'm drinking Pacifico. It's Sunday fun day, right? So cheers. Cheers to me drinking by myself on a Sunday. Okay. Anyway, hopefully some of you are out there also. But I'd just like to say I was very productive this weekend. I actually did a lot of yard work yesterday. I've cleaned the house today and done dishes, so I deserve this beer, right? It's a Sunday afternoon after all. And I'm podcasting, so hey, it's all productivity at the end of the day. Okay, so I thought I would just start with like a little bit about my journey of me as a kid, my life, right? Because it just gives you the background of some of my story of how I ended up dealing with any depression. So I'll start as a kid. I had a great upbringing. I had a normal upbringing per se. I had nice house, 2 parents, brother, dog, great friends. Overall, I look back at my childhood and I just have warm, fuzzy feelings. Overall, there was obviously things I struggled with as well as any other kid would, but just had the most loving parents. My mom was just an angel. I have memories of like her waking me up with a bath already run ready to go and get in the bath before school, you know, like cup of tea ready for me to drink. Just spoiled me actually. She definitely spoiled me, but in a way, like my parents taught me how to have a humble heart. So it wasn't like I was spoiled to being a brat. But anyway, just so grateful of my childhood. My parents did such a great job. My dad struggled with his own demons a bit, you know, with his alcoholism. And my mom too. Who doesn't have demons, right? I knew she struggled with anxiety really bad. She used to have panic attacks. And she thought she had a heart attack at one point when I was 8. So she stopped smoking. So she's always been a really anxious person. She had a lot going on in her life that kind of probably added to that. So I will say I was definitely exposed to, as a child, to a lot of anxiety. You know, my dad always had to have things going, go. Like he was struggling with his alcoholism. Not that I saw that, but you know, that's an inner, you know, battle in itself. And my mom always running around codependently, making sure he's okay. And overall, they just had an amazing relationship. But there was codependency and alcoholism and anxieties, right? What household doesn't have something like that going on? So I know that I was exposed to anxiety, and I developed my own symptoms of that as a very young kid as well. Partly, I think DNA is in that. I started having phobias, weird, like irrational ones. When you're little, you don't really understand fear, right? So you develop irrational fears. And I had a fear of throwing up, which I know is a common phobia out there, right? Who the fuck likes to throw up, right? Nobody. But I mean, I would have major panic attacks. Like I had to have code words and shit I couldn't use. Like I'd worked myself up so much from the fear of it, I'd actually end up throwing up and stuff. It was silly. But you know, it turned out that, you know, it was just an early stage of me managing anxiety, right? And then it sort of presented itself in more like traditional panic attacks in my teen years. Like I felt like I couldn't breathe and so on. Very like unexplainable. Like looking back, if I've sort of dove into that and wondered where all that came from, and it could have been spurred from, you know, we moved when I was 8, so maybe like there was a lot of anxiety and stress around that move from my brother and my mom, so maybe it came from that. You know, maybe I held it together, but like deep down I was maybe struggling with it too, and that's the way it, you know, sort of presented itself. Then again, like I kind of grew out of it. I've always done a good job about, you know, taking things on head first and just saying, right, let's fix this. Let's try to get a solution. I didn't let it take over my life in any way. I kind of plowed through it, didn't need meds, didn't need therapy, just carried on living life to the fullest and kind of like worked my way through those panic attacks and learned how to manage them, if you will. And then I, you know, stopped having them, right? So I feel like I successfully kind of grew out of that. Doesn't mean that I don't have that like baked in me and ready to present itself in different ways at any time. You know, anxiety and depression come go hand in hand, right? But I've never had a clinically depressed personality at all. I've always had very rational, logical ways of working through things. I'm very emotional, but I have never had traumatizing things in my life that caused me to be a depressed child or manage things. I've just had a lot of love and support from my family, had a lot of great fun with my friends, and just was always very empowered to go live my life. So I went off to college. Mind you, I started partying pretty hard when I was in college. So I'm surprised. I was good, but I was also bad. But I held it together. If anything, I learned from my dad how to be a functioning addict, or I wouldn't say addict, abuser, partier, whatever you want to call it. I hate labels, but it is what it is. But again, looking back over those years in college back in England, I just had the freaking best time in life, just I never had any major boyfriend problems. I dated guys and things would work out, wouldn't work out. I've always just never let any of that get in the way of my friends and my fun and just the great things that, life had to give. Worked, and then I moved out here to the States, carried on having a great time, met my ex-husband, right? Again, partying and like living life to the fullest. But then we moved to Hollywood. We had this cool, like, new first year of being together, and it was just like, again, all fun and all great. Lovely relationship between him and I, and that's why I thought we'd be a great fit to start having children. It wasn't much thought put to it. I was only 25, but I was just running off with my feelings and thought this must be it, oops, I got pregnant. Oh, okay, that's fine. And then life really got serious, you don't start living life with any seriousness until you start becoming a parent. I don't know about you guys if you agree on this, but I feel like that's the turning point of my life is, I was chasing dreams back then in 2005 of being in the film industry, and so was he, my ex and stuff. And we had the freedom to do that. We were young, we were making ends meet, everything was fine. And then once I became a parent, shit got real. Or, soon to be parent, right? Pregnant. Shit got real. I had to take things in a different light, to switch back to a different career that was more like, steady and, had to put on my big girl pants and be the mature person to now be in charge for another person's life. And, I wish I could say the same for my ex-husband. They're not wired the same, guys, like he was only 21 as well at the time. I was 25, he's 4 years younger than me. He was young. I mean, he's mature for his age, but he was definitely not ready for any of that, looking back. And like, I'm shocked to think that I would even think that he would be ready for that. I was just head in the clouds, I guess. But, and that was a turning point in my life and his life and our lives as a family. But, I give it to him. We tried our best to make things work. Went back and lived with his parents. And, and then it was like, shit, I'm about to have a kid, And we had to, but then he wasn't ready to start drinking and partying. I did because I was pregnant, right? And then I'm bearing the woes of this responsibility by myself. He's still young and, he's standing by me, and we're going and getting a new apartment and close to his parents and all of that. However, he's not in any mental state to like fully grasp what the fuck was about to go on from there, I did, because I got this shit growing in my stomach and my hormones are starting to, intensify and my body's changing. And, all you moms out there, I'm sure can relate exactly what I'm talking about. If any of you guys are listening, you can't relate whatsoever. But, that shit was a mind fuck. I used to write a journal at the time, and I still keep that journal from the first few weeks of my pregnancy. I think it's funny to go read it. Sometimes it's just funny to read what was going through my head, and a lot of fear, I remember it like yesterday, a lot of, oh my God, is this really happening? What was I thinking? And that was the beginning of the end, if you will, between him and I, on our journey of how our life would never be the same and never be like a healthy relationship after that, because his drinking and stress of that just got worse and worse. And he's in his early 20s, like I'm mid-20s, right? And fuck, I mean, we made it work. We got through the pregnancy, baby came, and I feel like I didn't have time to feel too much fear. I was working and dealing with this new baby, and it was just a mixture of like pure joy as well as pure fear and stress all the time, because he was now, his drinking and anger that came from alcohol, like alcohol infused nights of fights and stuff, were getting a bit ridiculous. But I was just trying to be the best mom I could be and all of that for this new baby. And Matt did his best as well in between him drinking. He was a great dad. So yeah, that